People who go into the criminal justice system for the first time frequently make a big mistake. They believe that stakeholders in the system are going to see them in the same way that they see themselves. I made that mistake. I remember when I was first arrested, I wanted to believe that the DEA who arrested me would see me as I saw myself or as my parents saw me instead of how they would see me based on their perspectives. And as a person who served multiple decades in prison, I realize that that is really a categorical mistake for somebody that's going into the system, is to not really understand the process. One of the things that I like to do to try and help people is help them understand what could they be doing to understand the process. And sometimes I will just look over here at the Department of Justice's website, and I will go on to the news right there and look at articles that come up, and it'll lead me to various articles that are just happening in real time. Like this guy here is a New Jersey return preparer, pleads guilty to preparing false tax returns for clients, and there's some information about his case. So we learn for the first time, or at least I'm learning for the first time, about Vito A. Pasquarella, who is pleaded guilty to criminal charges of absconding or not reporting $550,000. At least that's just basically the headlines of the case. The question is, how is this guy going to present himself as he prepares for the journey ahead? If he doesn't understand how the process of the criminal justice system works, he can't really lay out a plan that will help him move towards the best possible outcome. And one of the blogs, one of the things that we do is we publish every day with hopes of providing free information to anybody who wants to learn. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors. We're a nonprofit that doesn't generate any revenues, that doesn't charge any fees. We're really just striving to share the strategies that people can use to position themselves for a better outcome if they're going into the system. And one thing in today's blog, which I will share with you, talks about is to understand, what does it mean if you're going in for the first time? And in the beginning of the blog, I reference Stephen Covey, one of the influencers who really helped me at the beginning stages of the journey. And one of the lessons that he gave in his 7 Habits of Highly Effective People is to seek first to understand before you seek to be understood. If you're going into the system, don't start off trying to make everybody else understand who you are or why you're worthy of relief or why you shouldn't be going to prison. Don't make statements like, I've never done this before. This is the first time. I deserve a second chance. I deserve relief. That may be the case, but it's not going to be the way people who are working in the system are going to see you. And so you've got to be thinking about, okay, what are my different options? What's going to happen in this process going forward so that I can really figure out, how do I navigate my way through this in the way that is most effective for me? And this fella that I spoke about initially, he has already pleaded guilty and taken a deal. But that's not the end of the journey, right? He may have pleaded guilty, but there are still things that he can do to self-advocate, to build a mitigation plan that will influence his journey both in the pre-sentence investigation report, that will influence his journey when he's facing sentencing, that will influence his journey once he gets to prison, that will influence his journey with regard to his possibilities for getting administrative release so that he can get out of prison at the soonest possible time or get the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. And these are strategies that apply to people whether they are facing a white-collar crime, a violent crime, a drug crime, any kind of crime. What we have to remember when we're going in, if somebody's going into a crisis like this, is you cannot change the past. The only thing that you can do is start building a pathway that might open opportunities for you or might make you a better candidate for relief at the earliest possible time. But if you don't understand the process of what's coming, you really don't even know how to architect that plan, and you start making bad decisions. I made really bad decisions. I was arrested on August the 11th, 1987. I was locked in solitary confinement because authorities had charged me with leading a continuing criminal enterprise. it just basically means that I controlled 5 people or more. I had 3 or more overt acts in my drug conspiracy, and that there were substantial amounts of money involved. And because of that, I faced a sentence of the possibility of life in prison. So authorities locked me in solitary confinement, and I was there for the first year of my sentence while I was going through this process, not understanding what's waiting for me, what's going to happen, what options do I have. But what I should have been doing is architecting a strategy that would advance me as a candidate for the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time. That's what it means to architect a strategy. You've got to, first of all, understand the process, and then you have to understand, well, what can I do to advance me as a candidate for the highest level of liberty at the soonest possible time? And that's what I wrote about in this article. And I also gave some tasks or some things for people to think about. So you could read the article and realize why you don't want to make statements like, but I've never even had a speeding ticket before, which is a common statement that many people make. You know, the reality is you haven't died before either, but that doesn't make you immortal. Okay. As far as people in the system are going to consider you, they're going to consider you as somebody who has been charged with a crime and somebody who can potentially face significant sanction. And so what can you do to understand what's going to happen? Well, the first thing that's going to happen is after, there's going to be a plea hearing, and then potentially a change of plea hearing or a trial. And then if there's a conviction, either by plea or by trial, by a conviction by a jury, then there's going to be a pre-sentence investigation report. Then there's going to be a sentencing hearing. Then there's going to be a custody and classification hearing. And then there's going to be a transition to prison. And then from prison, you're going to start working on administrative reliefs with hopes of advancing your pathway to liberty. So the more you learn about this, the better off you're going to be. And the earlier you learn about this, the better off you're going to be. And in today's blog, that's what we really spoke about, is just try to understand what's going to happen and to make sure that you understand the implications if you discuss your case with anybody. The only person you should be discussing your case with is an attorney. And you should be talking with your attorney about whether the attorney is going to support your efforts to self-advocate and to advance yourself for the best possible outcome. So in the article, which I encourage you to read, there's a link down below from this video. Just start to ask yourself and introspect and meditate on these questions of whether the evidence is going to support the charges, on what are the risks of going to trial, on how could you prepare? Do you have the resources to go to trial? How can you prepare for sentencing, right? The more you understand about the system, the better off you are going to be to assess whether you're in a position to fight the case, to cut a deal, to prepare yourself for administrative relief later. The reality that I experienced as somebody who did 26 years in prison is that there's always more opportunities in the future than in the past, but you've got to position yourself for success. And at Prison Professors, we offer all kinds of free information. You don't have to pay a penny for any of it. In fact, I always make 3 promises on these videos and on our website. 1, I'm never going to lie to you. 2, I'm never going to ask you to do something I didn't do. And 3, I'm never going to ask you to pay a penny for any of the information that's freely available on Prison Professors. And I hope that you will find value. If you need a guiding hand, I'm sorry, but I'm not the person who can give you that guiding hand. I would recommend that you visit our sponsor who supports us with a weekly free webinar that's interactive and live, and you could ask your questions there. But anything that they do, you could learn how to do yourself. Just be willing to do the work by going through all of the lessons we make available on Prison Professors. My name is Michael Santos. I'm the founder of Prison Professors, and I believe in you.